15. So you have to actually do it all now.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll give you a bit more time.
I'll keep my comments brief. Thank you, Chair Robinson, members of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. I'm also pleased to see the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Denzelman and Wong, who led the drive for safer streets in the last term of council. The cycle tracks on Richmond Adelaide wouldn't have happened without him, so thank you, Councillor. How about Jarvis? Yep. True enough. Toronto's a city of cyclists. I think, as we all know, over the last year, 1.5 million Torontonians have ridden a bicycle, and they want to ride more often. 73% of Torontonians say the lack of cycling infrastructure is holding them back from riding more often. And we can see why. A cyclist is hit by a car driver every 6 hours of every day of the year. We went to our membership and we asked them, have you been struck while riding on Bloor Street? And we received dozens and dozens of emails back, stories that said, you know, with a bike lane, that this could have been prevented. This is also in the face of an on-street bicycle network that has grown at a glacially slow pace. But things have begun to change. Toronto built the Richmond Adelaide cycle tracks, which closed a major gap in the cycling network downtown. 1 year after implementation, the number of riders on Adelaide tripled. Tripled! We don't see those kinds of numbers in many places on our transportation network. Queens Quay is another significant success story. The summer after the opening, like literally 1 month after the opening, the new bike path along Queens Quay, a 24-hour count was done of cyclists, and it found more than 6,000 people moving by bicycle. Torontonians want to ride, but they won't do it unless we provide safe cycling infrastructure. There are many examples from around the world that we can look to in addition to these. Seville, Spain, a city of 700,000 people, grew mode share from under 1% to more than 7% of all trips in 6 years. And they did this by installing a backbone network of nearly 130 kilometers of protected bike lanes throughout the city. But here's the thing. When it comes to bike lanes in Toronto, most of the easy stuff is done. Building bike lanes means rebalancing the street, in most cases, away from space for cars. Streets like Bloor are the right places to build bike lanes for many of the reasons that previous deputants have mentioned, and that will boldly expand the cycling network. But to highlight one more, we can get the city moving. More than 80% of the time, Bloor Street has 2 lanes of parking and 2 lanes of car traffic, treating half the roadway like a parking lot. Installing bike lanes would retain those 2 lanes of car traffic and 1 lane of parking. We can give Torontonians more transportation options and get the city moving. Is the Bloor pilot large enough for us? Well, no, we're bike advocates. We want to see bike lanes on Bloor for the full extent to help unlock the network. Are we okay with the pilot as an intermediate step? Yes, of course. We need to work on this together to make change happen. It also doesn't have to be hard or scary. It's amazing what you can do with the right mix of planning and leadership and community engagement. And thankfully, with the Bloor pilot, we've had many of these things. I want to recognize the work that city staff have done on this under the leadership of Steve Buckley and Jacqueline Hayward-Gulati. The extensive consultation that we've seen has been truly remarkable. And they've provided an excellent plan for the pilot, including rigorous evaluation, which is before you today. Finally, and I'm going to cut my comments here, I also want to present to you the Bloor Pilot Pledge form. I printed this off last week. It's 274 pages in 8-point font. It has 9,309 names on it. These are Torontonians who are supporting the Bloor Pilot and support Bloor bike lanes in the 10-year cycling network plan. Change is possible. And I urge the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee to commit to that today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got a couple questions for you, I bet. So Councillor Cressy will start.
In the interest of time, I'm going to keep this to one question, and I know I have to phrase it as a question. Are you aware that the 2 local councillors are most appreciative of your strong leadership on this file? That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Cressy, I appreciate that. I also want to just underscore as well, though, that this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of road safety, and that we need to treat it as such. But thank you. It has been a fantastically, I think, productive process building community support for this project.
Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. We do very much appreciate your effort. But I wanted to ask a question because it's been brought up in the debate of why it's taken so long to get us to where we are. And in your experience, when discussing bike lanes in a neighborhood, it's typically fairly divisive. And that's probably an understatement, having been on in several of those discussions in the last couple of years. How would you characterize the community debate? Because a lot of these councillors who will be voting on this don't have a temperature for the room down in or of the pool in wards 19 and 20 around this particular area. How would you characterize the debate that, or the public sentiment around this issue, given the divisiveness of other bike lane debates?
Quite frankly, I think that folks are frustrated that it's taken so long, that the process has felt like it's progressed at a glacial pace. There are always going to be folks who are against this or that. I think in the case in New York City where Jeanette Sadi-Khan, worked on, installing 400 miles of bike lanes over the course of 7 years. And one of the things they found was at the start that only 52% of, New Yorkers were in favor of the bike lane network, and that after it was done, that was up to 72%, which I think in politics is incredible. With that said, there still are going to be folks who are opposed to this. I think when we walk Bloor Street and we talk to people about the issues, what we see is not just cyclists who want to see this, but pedestrians as well. And those were actually when we were out signing folks up to see if they were interested in, seeing a pilot rolled out, that it was actually pedestrians that were signing up more often than cyclists in many ways, because they want to see a safer Bloor Street, which I found really interesting.
Okay, we have another question for you. Councillor Holliday.
Hi, Jared. Thank you for coming. And I know your depth of knowledge on this is quite deep, and you've thought a lot about it. So I'm going to ask a very detailed technical question. Bloor Street is extremely important, and work happens in the city. Would your group be supportive of bike lanes that could be taken down from time to time to deal with an emergency situation, to deal with maybe some road construction, or shifting traffic if there's an accident or something happening, given that it is taking significant capacity off of Bloor?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think when we look to Richmond and Adelaide, we see good examples whereby when construction has happened, when there are emergency situations, what we see is, bike lanes that have been reduced principally in size. We've seen examples where the bike lanes have been closed. In those cases, ensuring that there's great communication, great signage that says to drivers and to cyclists both that cyclists and drivers share the road, may use full lane, cyclists may use full lane. I think there are a lot of 21st century approaches to this that ensure, and I think the Torontonians are understanding. So my sense is that in those times where there are extreme needs, that is sensible.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'll ask you a question quickly, please. Just about other cities. Somebody came back boasting about some European city, I forget where, there was a lane where taxis, buses, and cyclists all shared the right-of-way, and it worked very effectively. What's your thought process around that?
I think Bay Street is a good example where we have that currently. And Bay Street's also, in many cases, is a street that most people don't feel comfortable riding on. I've almost been doored on that street and sideswiped by a taxi. I don't think that that style of lane works for a major arterial or a minor arterial. That kind of lane can work well for low-speed residential roadways. But for, fast, busy streets, that's not the kind of infrastructure that is going to enable children, older adults, men and women who are novice cyclists to leave their car at home, get off busy transit and ride.
So you don't think it works? You're not a proponent of that concept?
Not on major streets, no.
Okay. And then you said this in your remarks, but I just want to get really, like, what I think is lacking in the report is what is the big picture here? Let's just be honest with the citizens of the city. What is the big picture plan? Because this is just a little bit, right?
yeah.
So what are we doing west on Bloor and east on Bloor? Because I'm a big picture thinker. I want to know what the game plan is.
Right, yeah. I mean, in terms of, where our approach to the... Yeah, I mean, with respect to...
I asked him.
With respect to Cycle Toronto's position, we would ideally like to see this as, a major east-west corridor that is adopted within the cycling network plan to truly unlock the potential of cycling in the city of Toronto.
Okay, so this is just the first step in your overall plan of making Bloor a major east-west corridor for cycling, separated?
Physically separated, yeah. I mean, Councillor, we have to do things here in the city of Toronto, I think, by working together. And I think that's what we've seen in this cross-section on Bloor Street. We've seen residents associations, businesses, business groups, schools. I mean, it's amazing the degree to which this community has bought into this. But that takes time. And so I'd really like to see this as, the first experiment in what could be a much bigger picture to unlock the cycling network here in the city of Toronto.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you do? You didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
No, I haven't asked one question.
Go ahead.
Just ask.
Sake of experience. So if I went out and I got myself a horse and a wagon, and I decided that that was going to be my mode of transport, would I be able to use the road? Would I be able to take my horse and buggy on any road in the city?
I'm not aware, unless you're a police officer riding on a steed. I'm not aware of any places other than the stables, perhaps up at Sunnybrook.
So you can't take a horse and a buggy on a municipal road? No, I'm just asking a serious question. I mean, there were horses and buggies before cars, and I just wanted to, how did they get run off the roads?
Probably because they're not as efficient as bicycles.
All right. All right.
Is that it? Thank you.
Fair enough, yeah.